Hello, dear friends. Here I am again in the studio of the Ukrainian Catholic University recording this short video update from Ukraine. As most of you who follow my channel saw, I made a long break in recording this video during some summer weeks because I was busy with other projects, and generally the dynamics of this war is very strange. Sometimes it's even difficult to understand where the events are heading and what to expect, and sometimes I also had a difficulty to put together like a comprehensive summary to represent to you what's going on. But during these weeks, almost month and a half of the break, I received many emails from you, many messages asking me to not to give up on this project of updating you about the situation, the ground situation in Ukraine, and I will try my best to continue with these videos as far as my obligations at work and the general flow of life here in Ukraine allows. So today I want to cover this longer period that elapsed since my previous videos. Last week I posted one brief video just to tell you that I'm okay and say a few words about the situation here, but I hope in the next weeks to be able to regularly record good quality presentations on what's happening here on the ground. And today I want to speak about the dynamics of the war as it is developing these days in Ukraine. And first thing you have to know is that the war has not stopped. The war has not disappeared from reality, although it probably has disappeared to a large extent from the priority coverage of Western media. And we understand that the whole world does not have to live by everyday reality of the war in Ukraine on the one hand, and there are many other events, important events happening in other countries. But on the other hand, unfortunately, this war is something far beyond a small regional conflict of two countries in Eastern Europe. This war is not only threatening to turn into a huge, maybe even nuclear conflict, international conflict, but also it impacts various aspects of life of people in the European Union, in the United States, in the third world countries. A great example of this is the food crisis that is looming on us because of the shortage of supplies of grains from Ukraine, which seems to be solved temporarily, and we hope that the supplies of wheat, grain from Ukraine will, as of today, will become more stable, because the first ships from Ukraine headed to Turkey today morning, bringing thousands of tons of food supplies that will be sold to other countries, agricultural produce. And but on the front lines, the situation remains extremely intense, extremely difficult, and I want to elaborate on that a little bit more. All the experts say that this war has gone through three stages. The first stage, an early stage of full-scale invasion of Russian troops in Ukraine, ended more or less in early April or end of March, and that was like a very brutal campaign of taking over the whole territory of Ukraine, which ended in complete disaster for Russian troops. And then the second stage was this much discussed battle for Dunbas, when they tried to concentrate all their troops in the Donetsk-Luhansk region and to take over the territories of this so-called self-proclaimed People's Republics of Donetsk and Luhansk, and even that did not work. They have advanced a little bit. They have occupied almost all territory of the fake Luhansk People's Republic, but there is still a large part of the Donetsk region that is contested by Russian army today, and they are trying to take it over, but with very little success, and it's an extremely bloody battlefield there. And with this attempt to take over Donbas, we are entering into the third phase of this war that will be fought, or is already fought, over parts of Donetsk region, but also southern Ukraine, Kherson, Zaporizhia and Mykolaiv regions, which are adjacent to Crimea Peninsula. So the idea of the Russians, as far as we can read their intentions today, is to fortify their positions into those southern regions and to annex them to the Russian Federation, or to proclaim them some kind of quasi-independent state attached to Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics. Who knows what they will, how they will configure this in a political way, but the idea is to freeze this conflict by the end of fall, and to control this huge territory in the south and east of Ukraine that they have succeeded to take over by now. The fighting that is going on is extremely destructional, is extremely bloody, extremely violent, and it's characterized by very intense artillery duels from both sides. But Russian artillery is superseding Ukrainian in sometimes by 10, sometimes by 20, especially in the number of ammunition, of projectiles used. And so what our soldiers are dealing with in the south, especially east of Ukraine these days, is really the storm of fire from Russian artillery that they have to stop with their own bodies. Because they are holding the fortified areas, fortified lines in the east, and Russian artillery works precisely on their positions. Some troops withdraw, but they cannot do it endlessly, because then the front line will shift towards central Ukraine eventually. And what is going on is that we are suffering terrible human losses. There are different estimates of casualties among Ukrainian troops, but they are certainly estimated in tens of thousands by now. Let me just remind you that the official count of Russian casualties by the Ukrainian side, and mostly by international organizations, is at 40,000+ today. So Ukrainian military casualties are probably similar to those. Plus we have to add unknown number of civilian casualties, and many people say that the general losses in this conflict are well over 100,000 lives from both sides. As I said already, the infrastructure of all the towns and cities through which the front line goes is wiped out, destroyed to the ground, as you can see on this video and just on multiple pictures from the battlefields. These cities will not have prospects to be rebuilt, even if we invest a lot of money in them in the future. They will probably be just abandoned, and some new settlements will be built in that area. Just few more pictures from the places in central Ukraine where Russian missiles hit some targets, some civilian targets, I must add. And this picture was widely circulated in the Ukrainian media. You can see a road sign which was in the epicenter of a missile explosion, and it leaned to the pillar as if it were a paper sign. So it's a metal, a rather thick metal road sign, and you can see what happened to it. So just to give you an idea what the rocket explosion is and how it affects everything it comes in contact with. I will show just a number of pictures, as always, that I think are symbolic of what is happening, and one of the most heartbreaking images I found in the social media these days is this picture of a stretcher with stains from blood of a wounded or killed soldier, and the description there was the title for this picture was a modern contemporary Ukrainian shroud of Turin. Those of you who are familiar with the church art or with the relics of the Christian church will recognize a visual allusion to the famous shroud of Turin as a cloth in which Jesus' body was wrapped, and that is preserved till now as a relic. Unfortunately, there are many relics like this these days, and I'm afraid to open Facebook or other social media in the morning, because it's a kind of ironic thing. Something like Facebook was invented for people to do silly things, to share pictures or funny images and so on. But as it is, Facebook is one of the most powerful platforms to inform people immediately of what's happening. So people are posting a lot of pictures from the war, from the zone of fighting and from the front lines, and also when someone dies, the picture goes immediately on the social media to inform friends and family that this soldier has fallen on the battlefield. And every morning, literally every morning, when we are opening the social media, we stumble across a picture of 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever friends who did not survive this night or that day. And sometimes these are close friends, sometimes these are just distant acquaintances or friends of friends, but many pictures like that emerge over the last days and over the last month, and this is, I must tell you, is a special experience that deserves certain spiritual and psychological reflection on it. How you live in your everyday life, and then you open your telephone and you see routinely number of people who passed away just an hour ago or so. So that's really, really terrible. Another thing I wanted to mention, something I already mentioned briefly in my previous video, is this terrible incident that happened in this detention facility for Ukrainian prisoners of war called Olenivka, or sometimes spelled Yelenovka in a Russian way. It's a detention facility that is located in the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, where all the prisoners of war who surrendered in the Azovstal were placed. And we gathered multiple reports from the facility that those prisoners of war were interrogated, tortured, and sometimes killed. And then, to hide the loose ends, the Russian authorities ordered a rocket hit or an explosion. It's not clear what happened, but all the prisoners of war, over 100 of them, were brought into a barrack, into a special compartment, which then exploded in the night. And there are many investigations going on online, judging on the pictures, on various small details, what might have happened. But the Russian side obviously reported that the facility was hit by a Ukrainian rocket. Surprise, surprise. So the Ukrainian side was accused in killing their own soldiers it's not clear for whatever reasons we would do this, but that's what Russians claim. But then when specialists look at the pictures, even those pictures that leaked to the press from the Russian side, it's very clear that the detention facility was not hit by a rocket, or it was a very strange rocket. It was not a usual explosion that destroys the building, as you have seen just on my videos here, or you can see on the internet. But it looks like the explosion was from the inside, or a special ammunition was used to go into the facility through the window and explode inside. So in any case, the number of deaths of our prisoners of war is estimated at over 50 persons, and then something like 100 is wounded. It's not clear. We don't have any reliable information how many people were actually placed there. There are different reports, all based on very fragmentary Russian pieces of information, Russian provided pieces of information, and in any case, this is a terrible atrocity of this war, an unheard of act of terrorism to kill all those prisoners of war who have already suffered terribly in Mariupol, in Azovstal, and then later from the interrogations and tortures and abuses they went through. But it's very clear that Russians did it to cover any traces of their criminal behavior with the prisoners of war. Again, there is a huge scandal developing over the International Red Cross, because this organization claimed that they will be somehow securing the prisoners of war when they surrendered from Azovstal, and they were supposed to watch over them somehow. It turns out now that they were not admitted there by Russian side, which was predictable, and now they are kind of washing their hands, saying that we did not guarantee anything. The families of those soldiers that died in Olenivka or are still held there as prisoners of war demonstrated in Kyiv recently, calling for all international organizations and the government to intervene, to do whatever they can, and accusing Russians in war crimes. Just to give you another example of the Russian propaganda and how dangerously close it came to real Nazism or fascism of the World War II. Let me quote you a recent text that just appeared on the Russian social media. It's written by one of state propaganda journalists, if they can be called journalists, or reporters from the Russian side, someone who is advocating the Donetsk People's Republic in the media and serves as a spokesman for various pro-Russian groups in the eastern Ukraine, certain Vladislav Ugolny, and he has just written a text which really deserves to be quoted verbatim here in English translation. It's called "Biological Annihilation of the Ukrainian Nation." And there is a period after each word in his own style. I don't know why he does that, but it's just very emphatic. Ukrainian nation has to be biologically annihilated. Those Yukis are really stubborn guys, and they succeeded to put together a nation, to create a nation. All those who spoke that Ukrainian nation is an artificial construct and that we, Russians, Belarusians and Ukrainians are one people, are just fools. Here he refers to some Russian propagandists who keep saying that there is no such thing as Ukrainian nation. We are all one people, Russian, Belarusians and Ukrainians. And so Ukraine has to be taken over and assimilated into Russian state. So he rejects this opinion. He says, no, Ukrainians have become a separate nation, but the consequence from that is not that they have right to live as independent nation. They have to be physically destroyed, annihilated. And then he continues, Russians cannot be one people with those subhumans. He actually uses that word, Untermenschen. And subhuman they are, whoever identify themselves with the Ukrainian state independent from Moscow. So if you are Ukrainian and if you think you have a right to live in a Ukrainian state independent from Moscow, you are an Untermensch. We will not any longer waste resources on assimilating you, as in the past, in history. Today we are speaking about the biological annihilation of the Ukrainian nation. So no one should have any illusions of what is going on in Ukraine. It's not a skirmish between two neighboring nations over some, little border problems or an artificial political conflict blown up to the scale of war. No, it's a real existential conflict for the survival of the Ukrainian people. I'm saying that because there are more and more voices in the West calling for appeasement of Putin, saying that, oh, you just sit at the table, negotiate peace agreement, and everything will be rosy again. No, we just have to fight for our independence and for our physical existence. Thank you for watching this. Please like this video, share these videos, and help Ukraine to survive these terrible days of war and genocide. Thank you very much.